Finally, let's talk about there's a theory called the modernization theory. And you have this American economic historian in 1960s who wrote this book. And in this book, he talked about the stages of economic growth. He come up with these ideas that we can see the whole economic growth as a series of stages. If you fulfill the condition for early stage, you would automatically kick into the next stage. And if you go through all these stages, eventually you become a country with higher level of income. Okay. Now let's just look at the very first stage. The first stage was labeled by Rostow as traditional society. This is the time prior to the Industrial Revolution, and you have agriculture as a major economic activities and the major investment going to military and religion rather than economic development. Okay, very traditional, very less developed state. Then, in order to lay the foundation for better economic growth, in order to create a condition for industrial revolution, you need to somehow invest in some critical infrastructure and technologies to prepare for the condition of industrial revolution. So this is a very critical stage, and Rostow labeled as transitional stage. So you need to have some leaders of business, of government that have long vision and make very wise decisions to invest in some critical technologies and infrastructure, whatever it is. We know that in the first industrial revolution that took place in Great Britain, the critical industry is the coal mining and the textile industry, also metal making as well. And they also make some important investment in canal building and later on in railroad building. So these are some very early critical investments in some important industry and infrastructure. So as soon as you lay the foundation for this transitional stage, you create a condition for rapid development. And Rostow called this takeoff. That is starting point of industrial revolution. The rapid growth will occur in a number of important sectors. In the case of Great Britain, that is the textile industry, metal making, the coal mining industry, and transportation. So these are the critical sectors that helped the economic takeoff of Great Britain during the first wave of industrial revolution. And next stage, Rostow called drive to maturity. Now, during the early stage of industrial revolution, the rapid growth only took place in a small number of critical sectors. Later on, the fast growth will occur in many other sectors. Not just a critical first few sectors anymore, but also you have steel making industries, machine making industries, crude oil, the resource processing industries, and ammunition industries, and chemical industries. So it's not just a small number of industries that enjoy fast growth anymore. You have many other industries also start grow very rapidly. That creates a lot of employment opportunity for the entire population. And finally, you come to the age of a high mass consumption. The industry begins to shift from heavy industry to consumer goods. You have a color TV, appliances, and the washing machines, the dishwashers, the TVs, and also these cars. So that's the consumer goods become flourished. So that is the whole process that is going through stages, and Rosa proposed these kind of different stages, almost saying that economic growth is a kind of a process that you need to fulfill the condition for early stages, and then eventually it will kick into the next stages. And if the whole process has been is all the one step after another. You prepare for early conditions, prepare for condition for later development. It will almost automatically enter the later stage of development. So that seems to be his way to interpret how a country can achieve development in this context, modernization. This seems to be a model that accurately describe what happened to Western countries that have successfully achieved industrialization and development. But many scholars in developing countries see things very differently. What they propose is the core versus the periphery model, or dominance versus the dependency model. What they believe is that in current world, we can divide the world into two parts. One is called the core, another is periphery. So core are those Western countries, those countries that are already industrialized, they are in a dominant position. The other countries that have not become industrialized, the developing countries, they are in the periphery, and they are in a dependency position. They depend upon those developed countries for technology, for resources, and for investment. So on this map, you can really get a sense of those North American countries, European countries, along with Russia. So these are the countries what it describes as the global north. The global north can be regarded as the core countries, and those other countries outside those core are periphery. Basically, they are developing countries. So developing countries depending upon the core countries for technology, for investment. Therefore, the development of the countries at the core comes at expenses of the periphery countries. So a lot of wealth, a lot of true income that are generated, the profit eventually flow back into those countries at the core. So these are very different way of looking at the state of development today. It's a very different view compared with Russell's modernization theory. Well, this is the end of this lecture. These are the terms and the concepts you can check out from the textbook to prepare for the next test. I hope you like this. I see you next time. Goodbye.